should probably play Dark Souls.
You should. You'd like it. It's real good. It's
Okay.
like, I mean, it's no Streets of Rage.
But what is really?
Really, what is?
Yeah. I have been obsessed pretty much like my entire life at this point with finding the forever game. So the forever game for me is a game that you'll just play until, you know, till you're on your deathbed, or games that you've been playing since you were a child. Are there any games like that for you guys?
Yeah, sure. I think about this a lot. I'm a big fan of replaying games, as I'm sure you both know, as Kotaku readers probably know. I'm always playing old games when I should be playing new games. So yeah, there are definitely games that I have been playing forever. Not probably since I was a kid, partly because I didn't have that many game systems growing up. And so, you know, I didn't play Chrono Trigger when it first came out. And so, you know, I play Chrono Trigger a lot now. I play it on DS, but it's not quite the same thing. I'd say one for me is Half-Life 2. I did not play that game when it first came out in, I think, 2004. But then I finally built a gaming PC and was able to play it and played through it, and it was just incredible. This was probably like in 2010 or something like that. Yeah, incredible game, and something that I just come back to and sort of go through over and over and over again, and just kind of always have a save going. I feel like that's a little less true maybe recently, probably because I've found some other forever games that have taken its spot, but that's definitely one for me.
But it could also be a game that you will revisit like 20 years from now, or even 5 years from now. Like, it's a thing that will always sort of be in rotation, or at least within reach.
Do you find that sometimes they're like you don't know those games when you're playing them, and then you kind of identify them down the road? Like
that's the beauty.
Yeah, like there are times where I go back and I'm like, oh, like first Gears of War, man, that's a pretty good game, or something like that, you know?
Yeah, the first time I played Dragon Age Inquisition, I did not know it would ruin me. I just knew all that my friends were playing it, and I wanted to see why they were mad about Solus. So I played it, and now it has become this thing where if I revisit it, I know that's just the next 2-3 weeks of my life is dedicated to Dragon Age Inquisition.
And so now you are mad about Solus. You share
Fuck
the anger.
that egg, man.
Yeah, he sucks.
Fucking hate
he sucks.
so much. But for me, like, that doesn't feel like a forever game for me. Like, a forever game for me is something like Dwarf Fortress, where that is a 3-day weekend of takeout and tall boys and me with an irregular sleep schedule, and I cannot play that game unless I have that time and space to give it, because I will just stay up literally all night, obsessed with its systems.
Yeah, systemic games kind of work that way, right? Or Civilization is that way for me. Yeah. Like, I guess there are new Civilization games technically, but it kind of is always just Civilization, and whenever I play one, it's like, okay, I'm gonna get some takeout food, we're gonna make sure, you know, I'm gonna shower now, right, we're gonna get comfortable. And then I'm just going to play this for the entire weekend. And it tends to be one weekend every year, or even 2, just because I don't have that kind of time anymore.
Yeah, like for me, I've been playing The Sims since I was a kid. Everybody played The Sims when they were younger. It was like not a sort of a girl game yet. When it was just a weird game where you burned people to death in rooms with, you know, faulty barbecues and whatever. And the rhythms of that game are like intoxicating because there's always a new thing to accomplish. Like, I always end up playing through cycles of generations of families, because as soon as my elder, you know, retires and they're so not fun to play anymore, then I can move out the young adult and start a new family with them, and then, you know, build a new career with the Seasons expansion that's about to come out. It also has like holidays, so the rhythm of a year feels a little bit more normal, like how we're used to. Like, Sims have actual birthdays on actual calendar days, so you can plan, you know, upcoming parties in advance and celebrate Christmas with them and New Year's Eve and stuff, and Valentine's Day. You make your own holidays too, which is cool. And it is just like an endless like cycle, like an actual life, just sort of like nothing is ever complete. You will always have a new thing to accomplish, and that is completely intoxicating. Like, I just can't tear myself away from that stuff.
That reminds me of Stardew Valley, which I know
you
and I both play, and the difference between that and Animal Crossing, where Animal Crossing like runs on a real calendar, and a real daily schedule even, right? And I remember when I was really playing a lot of New Leaf on 3DS, I was super into that game because I would be kind of drawn in, and every day it just felt like, oh, I can get up in the morning and do my morning routine, and then it'll be the middle of the day, and then it's nighttime and I can go get bugs. Where Stardew Valley kind of has a different rhythm. I'll play for a much longer period of time in a single go, because that game you can just play. But the seasons totally make that game feel like it has that going for it. I guess I find that Animal Crossing would totally be a forever game for me, except that because it's on Nintendo consoles, I kind of move on from Nintendo consoles.
Yeah.
So I'm realizing that a lot of my forever games are PC games because I can still play the same. I can play No One Lives Forever now, like I played that game, 18 years ago, where I don't really have my Xbox 360 set up. I don't have a game. I never had a GameCube or whatever, so I kind of don't go back and play those games as much.
That's actually a good point. Like for me, one of my forever games is something that I grew up with too, which is Streets of Rage 2 or Tetris, and I always sort of follow that game wherever it goes.
Those are separate games.
Those are separate games.
Streets of Rage 2.
Streets of Rage 2 Tetris. Yeah, the old classic.
Yeah.
No, so I'll follow Streets of Rage. I've played Streets of Rage 2 on like every platform, from like the PS4 to 3DS to Xbox 360.
What's the best platform to play that on?
I don't know. That's a good question.
It's just
I feel like it's just awesome on every platform. You only have like 2 buttons, so you're good. But yeah, I feel like for me, those are the games that will always sort of be there for me, but it also comes down to like an archival thing too, of like which platform is it on, and it becomes sort of a nightmare in that sense. But I always sort of gravitate towards shooters. That's kind of my main thing. But I know as of late with things like Overwatch, for example, for me that has become a forever game for me. Because speaking of seasonal things, they'll introduce like holiday events or specifically timed events that sort of pull me back in, even when I'm just like not even into the moment. I'm like into it anymore.
So just staring into the middle distance, remembering when I was playing Love Live. Like I played Love Live for a really long time until I had to like cut myself off because it was just the events and the amount of time you'd have to spend grinding for things if you did not want to spend money for events. It was a very fun rhythm game with a lot of cute anime girls and really catchy songs. But it was this thing, well, sometimes you have to like stop a game from being a forever game because it actually just takes something away from you instead of enriching your life. I felt that way about like a lot of those gachapon like mobile games where maybe there's some mechanics I really like about the Fire Emblem mobile game, but the gachapon stuff is not, that actually hurts me. Like my desire to play is not about how much I like the game, it's about wanting to be able to afford the things that will make me good in the game, or just spending a buttload of money on it, which it seems predatory and wrong.
It's like the difference between forever and forever, which is kind of and you guys are talking a little bit about competitive games and that kind of online game and games as a service, these sorts of games that are happening now. I kind of draw a distinction between those kinds of games and the games I'm thinking of, at least, when I think of the idea of a forever game. So I recently wrote an article for the popular gaming website, Kotaku.com, which you should read. And it is titled, headline, I think it's the 16 types of video game. And it was an attempt, like sort of a serious attempt at breaking down the types of video game, not by genre, like shooter, action, adventure, whatever meaningless genre names, but by how we interact with them. Sort of like looking at how I play games and how people play games. And so one of them is the mainstay, which is like the online, like an Overwatch or a Destiny, or like the game that is just sort of your regular, maybe an MMO that you play, that you come back to, and maybe there's new content drop, you play a whole bunch, or maybe there isn't a lot going on and you just play a little bit over the weekend or something. And I kind of draw a distinction between that kind of game and the single player game like Half-Life 2 or Far Cry 2, or for me lately, like Bloodborne, or actually Breath of the Wild is like one of the ones that I feel like now that I have that game on my Switch, and I'm like, all right, I'm going to be playing this game forever, like in master mode or something. Yeah. And so that kind of game feels a little different to me, at least, in the way in my own headspace, compared to a game that's just kind of ongoing, like Overwatch, that has seasonal events and it's sort of always drawing me back. I could definitely see playing that game forever. I guess part of it is that you're beholden to servers, right? And it's kind of like you're participating in someone else's thing. Where with a Zelda game or something, if you play Link to the Past over and over again, you can just kind of play that on whatever system over and over.
You don't need internet for that.
Yeah, I feel like most traditional AAA single-player games, I feel like there's a finite point, even where if I'm not done, or if I'm in the post-game content, I'm done. Like I'm good with it. Definitely when the credits rolled on the new God of War, as much as I loved it, I hear the post-game stuff is great, but I was just kind of like, I'm good. I'm like good for like a good long while.
I can definitely see that.
Yeah, and with Breath of the Wild too, like I didn't even finish all the Divine Beasts, but I got to a point where it's like, I've gotten the thing that I want out of this game for right now and probably for a very long time. But there's games for me like Persona 4 where I could just go back into my save that I have right now that, everyone has like a half-finished save of Persona 4, I feel like, and play that and, not even get through significant plot stuff, but just grind in the dungeon. I just like really find that setting and world.
Put on some headphones and listen to that music.
Yeah, hell yeah. Man, there's something particular about the single-player experiences that feel infinite, even though they are sort of finite. I don't know. I think it must just be really come down to your aesthetics and your aesthetic sensibility of like, there's something that I find so pleasing about just like watching the calendar move over from one day to the next in the Persona games, or just fusing monsters feels really like fun, like a fun tarot activity.
There's something to that where there's such a big difference between a game like Persona, which I'm with you on Persona 4.
Yeah.
It's partly that it's mobile for me. I have it on Vita, and it's just the fact that I can carry a game like that around with me. But that game is a game that I play on and on and on. I think I'm on a New Game Plus. I've definitely played through it a lot, but it's so different than a game that's like a really systemic simulated game like Breath of the Wild. In that game, it's like, okay, I can walk into an area in Breath of the Wild and make some weird shit happen and do something wild because the game's such a little chemistry set. So that's kind of endlessly interesting.
That's how I feel about Dwarf Fortress. Like that's how I feel.
Very similar.
Where at any point in time, I can start a game of Dwarf Fortress and watch things fantastically go out of control.
Right.
And it feels, it's incredible every single time, and it's different every single time, and I have a new and interesting time every single time.
And it's such a different appeal, though the appeal of Persona is real, but the Persona, the appeal of that is like, okay, I can go through the same story that I know, but I can see these characters I love again and be in this, aesthetic world that's so beautiful and sounds so great.
The weird little Rubik's Cube puzzle of figuring out everybody's weaknesses in the dungeon.
And there is kind of that extra layer of depth, especially in really hardcore JRPGs like that. Like you were mentioning Monster Fusion, which is something I've never really gotten into, and it's like parrying in Dark Souls. It's something I always tell myself, I'm gonna learn how to do that. And then one day maybe I will.
I'm like one of those horrible people that just like has to min-max every system if I figure it out. Like,
oh man, Persona's dangerous.
Yeah, it's like I really can't get into that. Like Stardew Valley, I have learned how to play that game in a very stressful way.
You're the most capitalist Stardew Valley player.
It's like I'm a DSA member, but when it comes to my farm, I will be making the most amount of money.
You're going to maximize the profits on this
every single day.
So are there any games that you've played outside of Breath of the Wild recently that you can sort of maybe see yourself playing like 20 years from now, like the same way you talk about,
Yeah, I think all the Souls games, and I kind of tend to identify these games a few years after, like I was saying, I always kind of come back. I really like replaying games, so on the replays, usually where I realize, oh, okay, I'm probably gonna play this game forever. And Bloodborne, most recently for me, I took a break from Dark Souls Remastered because there was like a bug on PC, and I started playing Bloodborne again for the second time through and realized, oh my god, I love this game. I just want to keep playing this. Plus that game has those like optional chalice dungeons that just go forever, and so there's a ton in there if you just like fighting monsters in Bloodborne, which I do. And I'm realizing, okay, I'm probably gonna be playing this game in some capacity for at least for years, So yeah, I'd say that's one.
I mean, the games that I know are my sort of forever games are the ones that I have to stop myself from playing. The ones where I have to, if I see myself like thinking about starting it up, I'm like, do I actually have the time to do that? And it's Dwarf Fortress. I know it's always going to be Dwarf Fortress. I mean, also because new things are being added to Dwarf Fortress literally all the time. You will soon have the ability to kick out people from your fortress. And if you kick out people that have immediate relatives, the relatives, like the family will leave with them, and their extended relatives will be mad. I know, it's absolutely out of control. They did fix the bug where if you had a tavern, cats would go and lick up the puddles of alcohol, get drunk, and then vomit everywhere.
That was a bug?
That was a bug.
That seems like something that would just happen.
Yeah, of course.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, that game is like, maybe like 30% done. That's like a pretty generous estimate. And so like I will be on my deathbed with just like the MacBook Air I have now, playing Dwarf Fortress.
Nice.
Yeah, so I mentioned it before, but Tetris has been a game that I've played since I was able to pick up a controller with my tiny hands. And Lumines also I've played on every console it's been on PSP, Xbox 360, everything.
There's a new one coming out soon, isn't there?
So there's a new Tetris game coming out that's made by the guy who made Lumines. And like the studio that made Lumines.
Tim calls this one expensive Tetris.
Expensive Tetris. And I cannot wait for this game because I feel like this is going to be one of those games that I'm going to play on whatever platform it winds up. I follow it down in the future.
Do you find that, so Gita, you're clearly very familiar with Dwarf Fortress. Paul, you're really good at Tetris and Streets of Rage, I'm guessing. Do you find that familiarity plays a role in this? For me, it definitely does. There are times where I'm learning a new game, and it's just games are kind of hard. They're work, right? They're in a different way than watching a movie or something. Like you have to actually learn them. And there are definitely times, even playing Dark Souls Remastered, which is my first time properly playing Dark Souls. I've played all the later ones, and I'm okay at Bloodborne. But when I play Dark Souls, I suck at it, and it's hard, and I don't know it. And when I go back to Bloodborne, it fits me like a glove. I'm like, I know this level of cold. I know how to do this. And so there's kind of a comforting element, and I find that with all of my favorite games. Sometimes I just stop playing a new game that's the hot new game, and I'm just like, I'm not gonna do this today. I'm gonna go play some game I've played 4 times.
About this every time a new Pokemon game comes out.
Yeah, I can see that.
Especially because like they never changed or the UI ever,
Yeah.
even though it does not really make sense anymore. Like, why does it take more than one button press to throw a Pokeball at something? That makes no
it's
sense.
2018. Y'all gotta fix that.
There's got to be a dedicated Pokeball button. But
There's gonna be a Pokeball.
Oh
soon.
yeah,
I'm gonna lose my mind when that comes out. Like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. But yeah, like I know I'm going to get every Pokemon game. I just know it, and I know that it's going to be like a reluctant sort of tug up until the minute it comes out. But then I'm like, you could have a Pikachu. I'm like, I gotta get it. Like, I gotta be in that world. I have to experience that adventure one more time. I haven't finished like a bunch of Pokemon games, but I always love those beginning moments with that sense of adventure. That feels very familiar to me. I've been playing those since I was like 11 years old.
So that for me is a big thing too. Like I have played a lot of like the Silent Hill games a lot. And Silent Hill 2, for whatever reason, I always go back to just to be like, what if I missed one little detail on a line of a letter, or like I missed a painting that means something more? Like, so for me, a lot of that too winds up just being, what else can I sort of scoop out of that, like the bottom of that jar?
Yeah, it's like a mastery thing,
right.
Even beyond just the mechanical mastery of the game. It's like it's like watching a movie. When I watched, I wrote a thing recently about rewatching the Star Wars Episode 7 after watching The Last Jedi, and how all the characters seem kind of different because you know that Kylo Ren is sort of like this butthead and he's not kind of cool, and you know that Rey is just a random nobody, and it kind of made the story feel cooler. And but anything, that's just one example. Anything like that is kind of that way. You see the story again, you see it with new eyes, you know the twists and turns, you're no longer not sure what's happening, so you see all this foreshadowing, or you catch some little detail that you didn't catch, which can be really rewarding, I think.